that. I was like, what the fuck just happened?
This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Welcome to a not real episode of the Horror of Babylon, where we review Leon the Professional, aka Leon, aka The Professional, aka the 16th best Natalie Portman film. I am Ryan, and with me as always is Daniel. Say hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
And Hef is here too.
How y'all doing? Good to be here.
Thank you to our patrons, Abigail First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, or the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and say hello to Ronion, the unprofessional.
Does he have his own wolf and cub story?
Yeah, he's the wolf, I'm the cub.
That's hot.
Yeah, and he taught me how to run a good card game. Can run a card game. Trigger warning: murder of children, sexualization of children, drugs, indiscriminate shootings,
And the French.
There's no French people in this movie.
Isn't the dude who plays Leon French?
He is French.
Yeah.
His character is not French.
Yeah, his character's Italian.
Yeah, which I think he should have just been
French.
Yeah. But whatever. All right. Our history with Leon the Professional. Hef, why don't you kick us off?
Oh, sure. I watched this movie years ago during what I would call my cringe 20s.
Your artsy fartsy phase.
Yeah, where I watched unconventional movies and thought they were great.
Yeah.
Now,
I remember those days.
yeah. That being said, I still have a soft spot for this movie. I don't think it's. There's people I've talked to who either absolutely love this movie or basically say it's like the closest thing to pedophilia that they've ever seen, which... So, I like this movie a lot.
I thought I watched this in high school. I have a recollection of watching it on the big blue denim wraparound couch we had in my mom's house in high school.
Or call this couch.
Yeah. That we watched so many movies. I remember watching that with my brother.
That was a Bryce movie. I do remember.
This is a huge Bryce movie.
Oh, I'm sure.
But, like, as I was rewatching this last night, like, I was like, have I seen this movie? Because I literally, like, remember nothing about it. And I felt like I was watching it for the very first time. But
like a virgin.
Like Natalie Portman.
For the very first
And most girls don't like it the first time because they're with somebody they don't like. They're just showing off.
I also had moments of, like, I hadn't watched this movie in probably, like, over 7 years, probably. And I didn't remember a lot of the stuff in this movie, so... I
thought I liked it. And if I did watch it in high school, I can definitely see a high school me liking this a lot more than adult me. I didn't have a very good time with it this time, but I don't think it's a bad movie. I just don't think it's a me movie.
I also have like a thing where, like, I really liked it like years ago. I watch it now. I still liked it, but I can also see why past me liked it more.
But my only difference, like, my biggest difference with your story is I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who doesn't love this movie. Like every conversation I've ever had has been like, this is in my top 10 movies ever.
I could see like people like who watch this version specifically be people who look for this version though.
Daniel, what is your history with Leon, the professional?
A meme.
God, 15 years now you've been telling me to watch this movie. And then we read Lolita and you were like, hey, you know what's something that's like pedophile adjacent? Leon the Professional. And I went, hey, well, let's just go ahead and finally watch it, and we'll see where it ranks for Daniel.
Jason is, yeah.
Yeah.
He's not, well, I mean, he might be, but he doesn't. We'll
get there.
All right.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition. I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
Background. This is a French English language film written and directed by Luc Besson, who you may know from Nikita, a.k.a. La Film Nikita, or The Fifth Element, Multipes, or Valerian. In the City of a Thousand Planets. No, that's right. The City of a Thousand Planets. It's not Planet of a Thousand Cities, which would make sense. It's the City of a Thousand Planets.
The words of 1,000 Valerians.
Or Unleashed. This film had a budget of $16 million and took in $46.1 million. It was shot, all the interior things were shot in France, and the majority of the outside scenes were shot in New York City, which is where the film takes place. And it is an expansion of the ideas that Besson originally put into the film world in his earlier film, Nikita. And he did write a script for a sequel film called Mathilda, which when he left the production studio that made this movie, they retained the rights to Leon the Professional, and they wouldn't give him the rights back or sell him the rights because they were mad at him for leaving and starting his own studio. And to this day, they've never given them back to him. So he wrote a different movie, Colombiana, which is based on his script, which would have been a sequel to this film. And Colombiana stars one of my favorite modern actresses, Zoe Saldana. Love her so much.
Was she?
I've seen Colombiana, and it's not great.
She is Uhura in the new Star Trek movies.
Okay.
She's also Gamora in the MCU.
All right, I'm there.
She's also Blue Avatar girl.
In the James Cameron Avatar.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I was like, the one
Not
with
the
dead
last,
mom?
not the last Adventure.
She's also in the Tom Hanks film, The Terminal, where she plays a Trekkie in that movie and marries future Star Wars actor Diego Luna, who would of course go on to play Captain Cassian Andor in Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, and then later star in his own series Andor.
To make this circular.
Yeah.
Also, Zoe Saldana kind of has to overtaken what Natalie Portman used to be as far as like kind of a geek-centric, like not geek-centric, but like a lot of people who were into like alternative like movie-going experiences. Like Natalie Portman was kind of the queen of that for a little while, and then Zoe Saldana took her place.
I learned something today.
Yeah. I mean, she's Trek and she's Marvel, and yeah, I mean, she's great. I love her.
And that's that. Another story in the classic, infallible three-act structure. Good enough for Aristotle, good enough for The Simpsons.
Mr. Sislak, I have a feeling there's going to be one more act to this story.
Well, I'm not hanging around for that. 4 acts.
Structure and themes. So there's a lot to talk about theme-wise, and I think the primary theme, at least to me, of this film, one of my favorite themes in media is the wolf and cub story.
Yeah, it's great.
Which, of course, comes from the Japanese film series Lone Wolf and Cub.
That's the exact life I want.
Yeah. But it is if you're not familiar with it, it's about an adult, typically a man, who is a quote-unquote lone wolf who takes under his care an orphaned child. Could be either gender. Popular, like, modern versions of this kind of story would be, like, The Mandalorian is a big one, obviously. Yeah. So, Hef, what are your thoughts on this wolf and cub story?
I think I like it. Like, I especially like the scenes where he's like, because she basically badgers him into like teaching her how to like actually like be a cleaner. I really like the scene where he takes her up on. Yeah, I really like the scene where he takes her up on the roof, and like they're. But like my favorite point of it is basically where he's just like, you start with the rifle and you want to be as far away. Yeah, the knife is the last thing you learn. I thought that was very on point.
I like that, except I would think like, wouldn't your hands be the last thing you would learn? Like how to kill somebody with your hands?
I mean, yeah, but I mean a knife is still a hand weapon.
Yeah, but I was just I don't know. Maybe I'm just overexposed to like the Black Widow type, like wrapping your leg around their neck and just popping their neck. Be a little harder for Jean Reno to do.
Yeah, I mean he uses the knife, so like I think that's like they even emphasize that in the earlier scene where like that's when you know this is what you do.
Yeah.
But I also like that he like as far as the father like idea is that he does kind of encourage her to get in. Like the milk drinking, it seems
drink
dumb.
Milk, exercise, stop smoking.
Yeah,
don't cuss so much.
But he doesn't send her to school, and he also teaches her to murder people.
Yeah. Humbert even sent her to school.
True. True. He also encouraged her to read.
That was bad. I'm sorry.
I mean, but it's also true.
Yeah.
I think it's because maybe he didn't have an education himself.
That's true. He couldn't read, and Humbert was an academic.
Yeah,
so that makes sense.
They had an emphasis on different values.
Not Heth, the other one. Daniel, this is your first time watching this film, and I know you're also a big fan of the Wolf and Cub story type. What did you think?
Fantastic in terms of those sorts of stories. After her family is killed, and she just like walks past when she realizes what's going on, and is just like ringing his doorbell and trying not to bawl, and you see him with his gun there going, fuck, what am I supposed to do? And eventually lets her, and I'm like, that's a great way to start off a Wolf and Cub story.
It is.
It should almost, the best ones are always sort of reluctant, like they don't dive right into it like right away.
Yeah, it's always like you have to like invent a circumstance where this unwilling parent becomes a parent, and then the story is how they eventually come to grow a bond with the child and become their actual parent.
And in terms of how they set that up, like she pays attention to the stuff. Like, oh, he always buys 2 quarts of milk. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go shopping for my family because I don't want to get my dad to hit me again right now. So she leaves, and that makes her not be in the apartment when everyone else is dead. And she sees what's going on quick enough and just saunters on by, because what else are you going to do?
I forgive it because it works so well within the story, but it's hard to imagine like any kid keeping their head that well. Yeah. But it works so well within the movie that I let it go. Plus, there's also like aside from it just not being a me movie, there's my only like I think technically wise it's a very well made movie, but there are a few like logic things that I think don't make sense in this movie. But
there's one big one that is actually my Koontz for this whole movie.
Well, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Okay, so another theme, femme fatale, and we've already mentioned Black Widow once. It is a big thing in pop culture today, and it's
a big thing in this dude's like movies too. The director
he did Lucy.
Yeah.
And La Femme Nikita.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is like a proto femme fatale story. Like, obviously Mathilda is not a femme fatale, but you can see that
this is the origin story.
Yeah, exactly. This is her.
This is what she gets to talk to the Hulk about later.
Yeah, what's the Red Room? Is that Black Widow's? Yeah, or where she was trained, the Red Room? Yeah. Well, probably this is a little bit of a better experience than the Red Room.
You don't understand, Hulk. They took away my uterus. I'm basically just like you. Thanks, Joss Whedon. Thank you for that line.
French artsy fartsy stuff. Daniel.
I was not prepared for like avant-garde storytelling in my fucking
Hitman story. Because it's very, God, I don't want to use the word subtle, but there's like some shit where I'm sitting there going, is Léon supposed to be slow? Like, those were my notes. And apparently, yes.
Jean Reno intentionally played him to be a man-child.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there like, and he does it well. Like, he has like this gaping mouth look a lot, and I'm sitting there like, and then there's like these really long tracking shots, and God, anytime fucking Gary Oldman is on screen, and in my notes, I wrote, I think he just wandered onto set and they let him stay.
Luc Besson let him improvise the majority of his scenes.
I think he actually just killed the actors and they were too afraid to stop him. I think that's what happened. I think Dracula wandered onto set.
Yeah.
He got high and he started shooting people and talking about Beethoven.
I think canonically that works because I feel like Dracula and this movie happened around the same time.
And this is what would actually happen if Dracula came to New York City. He wouldn't get hit by a cab.
He'd get high and he would just fucking murder people.
Get hired by the DEA.
There's little capsules he's carrying around with him. They're actually just little blood packets for him to kind of keep going throughout his day.
I'm gonna be honest. When I saw him like pull because at first like the first thing they have he's like listening to music. I'm like, okay, like anytime he takes out his headphones, he's gonna like go wild, and then he pulls out pills. I was like, what happened to the headphones?
I wish that they would have kept that throughout the movie.
The headphones
instead of the drugs, because the drugs is just so easy.
That's what I was thinking when I saw it. But as soon I was like, I bet you he's gonna pop one of those in his mouth and he's gonna do something weird with his head. I was like, motherfucker.
Gary Oldman is obviously a very talented actor, but
he's flamboyant.
I like it when he's reined in a little bit more.
Thank you, Nolan.
Yeah, exactly.
But I like that just kept happening when I was watching this movie. Was I was making notes going, am I reading too much into this? Or I would call something and go, motherfucker. And you'd get like this above the head like thing, and he'd like be up at the camera cracking his head, just taking the drugs dry.
He was just very over the top.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I bet you this is supposed to symbolize something, but I'm too dumb to know. Same thing with the milk.
I don't think you are. Yeah. Like, I honestly think it's just like, it's Gary Oldman being Gary Oldman. Just let him do his thing.
My note for the milk was, that's a weird quirk, haha. And it turns out it was like, oh, it's supposed to represent purity and wholesomeness.
As far as like his character involvement overall is actually one of the things I dislike about the movie. Because I think he's just too much.
I liked him when he was I liked him when he was first introduced.
The first scene is probably the best scene.
The headphones and, oh, you don't want him to take those out. I was like, you know what? That's kind of an interesting thing. Like, he's tuning the world out because he's too self-absorbed and doesn't want to be bothered with nonsense like people stealing his drugs.
It definitely took me back to Bram Stoker's Dracula, where it's just like everybody else is trying to make a movie and Gary Oldman is just
being Gary Oldman.
And it's like, I like Batman and Harry Potter.
I think what got me in this movie versus Dracula is like, in Dracula, everything is kind of extraordinary. In this movie, it's just him. Like, everything else is kind of just like, based in reality.
You have some over-the-top action, but all the characters are like sort of grounded.
Yes.
Except Gary Oldman.
Right.
And maybe that one dude with the dreadlocks that I guess works with the DEA. I guess he was undercover, which I didn't get right away. Because when they first showed up to kill everyone, I was like, man, this gang is like really diverse. And then when they revealed it was the DEA, I was like, oh, they're all undercover, so they all have to look like drug dealers. But they're all also actually drug dealers.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that actually made a lot of sense.
It doesn't explicitly explain all
and I like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's like something for you to pick up on a second watch. That shit's cool to me.
The other thing I had was police corruption, which we more or less just discussed.
Yeah.
So at Googling this movie, a thing that comes up, and this comes up a lot with Lolita too, and we'll let Daniel respond first. Is this film?
I don't think art that is, unless it explicitly tells people to commit crimes, is capable of being immoral. I believe it's just art. It's just a movie. It's just a video game. It's just a book. Unless the book is a step-by-step process on how to commit a school shooting, and then at the end there's an editor's note that says, this is not a work of fiction, I'm telling you how to do this.
Like Rage by Stephen King.
Even that doesn't say, hey, go do it. It's just
Have you read it?
I guess not, but... Does he do that at the end?
Explicitly, no.
Okay, well that's...
But... it's pretty close.
Unless it's explicit. Unless the...
I think you should read Rage before you comment on this.
I think unless the writer or the filmmaker comes right out and says, I am encouraging you to adopt girls and let them dance half naked for you.
I don't think
it's just art.
I don't think it's that black and white. I think it's a little more gray, a little more complicated than that. But what's your opinion?
I don't think it's immoral because of one big thing, and it's very simple. Leon does not encourage it. Like, as far as... Because with the immoral part
encourage
of this,
what?
The actual, like, what people seem to see about Matilda, like, and the pedophilic tones of things. Like, to me, everything is one-sided. It's Matilda seeing Leon as more of, not really just a father figure, but, like, the only real male influence with which she has any sort of respect for.
She's Ren, and he's Shishomaru.
So, to me, like... It's all based from her perspective, and maybe like I don't. I looked for it in this most recent rewatch. I didn't see any. I didn't, or at least I didn't pick up on any like undertone of Leon ever encouraging the love that she had for him. Now that's as far as the actual like pedophilic tones. But if you're talking about like the violence, like him encouraging her to...
He teaches her to murder people.
Yes. Like, that part, yes, that it would be considered an immoral part of the film. But if you're talking sexually, which is what people want to bring up with this movie, because that's the uncomfortable part, I would say no.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
And, of course, we'll start with the title character, Léon.
Love him. Love everything about him.
I love Jean Reno. I have loved him since I was a kid, since I saw Godzilla.
Oh, that's what I was going to bring up. That's the first movie I ever saw him in.
It's as long as it's not called Godzilla, it's an acceptable movie. I think somebody told me that once, and
then I saw him in...
I still call it... It doesn't bother me.
It's just a fun movie.
He's a character in Onimusha 3.
He is.
Not a big fan of the movie. In fact, I think it's one of the worst film adaptations of a novel of all time. However, the cast is phenomenal, and that includes Jean Reno, the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, the French policeman.
Yeah, he is great, and he's also in Flyboys, which is also...
I haven't seen that.
It's all right. It's a World War I dogfight movie with James Franco, and he's a French officer.
I do have, like... I think he's a great actor, but I have the same problem, like, every time I see Jason Statham in a movie, and I see... Jean Reno in these movies a lot, where they try to sell this dude as a badass, and and I look at him and I'm like,
I have a better comparison. He's like the French Liam Neeson.
Yeah,
like that's, but he doesn't get as many roles like that.
So I actually view him as, and this is unfair to both parties, but I actually view him as the French Ken Watanabe.
I could see that.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy him. I think he's a really great actor.
I think he's interesting to watch. Like I don't know, he's just got this face that's interesting.
He has a very distinct face. Like you see him and you know who he is, even though
even his voice, like with an accent, like even his voice is distinguishable.
And in this, he was playing it unlike anything I'd ever seen him play before. And I'm like, and that's why I kept making those notes going.
Of all the movies I've seen, this is probably my least favorite movie he's in. But I also think this is his best performance.
Yeah, he seems genuinely naive about a lot of things. At the same time, he also seems very focused in what his craft is. So, like, he walks the line kind of interestingly.
It kind of boggles the mind that he's, like, so adept at his one thing. But he can't read. He can't check himself into a hotel. He can't fill out a card. Like, all these... He doesn't know that his fucking friend is ripping him fucking off. Like, I'm like, Tony, I'm better than a bank, because bank you fill out paperwork. I'm like, Tony, you're full of shit. You're stealing this dude's money.
Oh, I fucking loved that, because it was so dark when I realized what was going on there. And I was like, oh, he's literally just taking advantage of this dude. This is great. This movie is like this really gritty, dark, hateful universe.
It's
real.
It's like modern, just it's not dystopian because it's not the future, but it's like whatever current dystopian is.
But you know, imagine you're a mob boss and you get this dude who just happens to be really good at killing, but he's just kind of slow in every other aspect. You're like, yeah, of course I'm going to take advantage of him. I'm a mob boss.
But he met him as a 19-year-old kid. Like, he didn't know he was good at killing. He just you would assume that he had him trained.
Yeah. Well, I kind of read it as like he saw him as disposable at first,
and then he turned out to be good.
He just turned out to be super good at it.
The way I read it is Leon says that his father worked for Tony. So my assumption is that his father was a cleaner.
Okay.
And his father trained him to be a cleaner.
Okay. That also makes
Well,
sense.
I can also see that because, like, Leon seems very... Even in the movie, like, you know, like, he's generally unfamiliar with everything else that goes on with the world except for what he does.
Yeah.
He's very exclusive to his craft. So it makes sense to me that, like, his father would teach him just that so that he could make a living for himself.
There's a lot of,
way.
like, fictional assassins where they just narrowly teach you only assassins. That's kind of what it reminded me of.
Yeah. But
he's like and this isn't the best term, but like the idiot savant.
The savant, yeah.
The Rain Man of killing people.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a character archetype.
He's a very unique character.
I also always love the, what would you call them, like the hitmen that just have that one code, no women, no children. Yeah. There's always like that exception for them.
Based on my own personal philosophy, if you're okay with killing people, then like what's the difference? But
yeah.
It's supposed to make you feel at least a little sympathetic.
To me, it's rationalizing.
It is.
At least women. Like I guess children could be different, but like, why is killing a man okay, but killing a woman is not?
The scene where
the same reason they get to get off the Titanic and I have to die.
The scene, like, I'll say one thing, like, that really got me in this one, as far as this is, like, that scene on the rooftop where he gives her the rifle, and like she's like laying, like, you legitimately think she's gonna kill that dude. I did too. Like,
I didn't.
I did. I 100% thought she was gonna shoot him.
No, I thought it was blanks, and they were just training.
No, I 100% bought the vibe. It was so funny.
The funny part to me is that out of all of the people down there, she just happened to hit the guy with the security detail. All right, so let's move on to one of my favorite performers of all time, Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman. Yeah,
Natalie B. Portman as Natalie Portman and Mathilda. And the next versus rap battle thing should be Matilda versus Mathilda.
I thought
produced by the Lonely Island.
Damn, Natalie, you a crazy chick.
Yo, shut the fuck up and suck my.
I thought this was the weirdest Matilda sequel.
She lost her psychic powers.
Yeah, that would be a great rap battle. Oh my god.
Hef, what did you think of Mathilda?
I found her just a little bit annoying this go around, but I also realized that, like, it does a really good job of showing she's a child.
Yeah.
Which is what you need. You're supposed to have that. Like, she's a child that is in a situation where she's still kind of rationalizing herself, like, what has all happened, and the only thing she can do is really try to take advantage and go a mile.
See, I don't think she's a believable child character in the slightest. However, I can accept it as, like, sort of like fantasy, like, because a realistic child character would not work in this story. But to me, like, there's no ring of truth in her, like, at all. Yeah. Like, no child would just be able to walk past their dad dead on the floor and keep their head cool and go to the door. Or no child would be like, just grab a gun and throw it out a window and just start shooting indiscriminately. Like,
perhaps not. And I would agree with that. But it's also an extraordinary situation, so you need extraordinary characters to go along with that extraordinary situation.
That's what her character works within the story that they're trying to tell.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I think there's just a choice couple of parts of this movie where Natalie Portman oversells the sad little girl thing just a bit.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't quite land on her feet. Now, again, she's a child actor, so I'm willing
to... And this is literally
her first movie.
And in her first movie, she has a lead role.
Yes. So I'm willing to forgive those points.
In an avant-garde French film.
Correct. Yeah.
This is exactly how I'm going to raise my cub.
Yeah.
So I think all things considered, she did a pretty good job. But yes, I agree with you. There are some scenes where she just goes a little over the top.
Yeah. Well, Alita Boy, what do you think?
Of Matilda, I thought she was great. I thought she was really funny. And a lot of time, I found this entire movie to be hilarious. I was laughing throughout almost this entire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like most of the movie is also like the scenes you laugh at are the scenes you laugh at.
I laughed through. I mean, I wasn't like rolling, but I did find it. To me, I thought it was intended to be funny.
When Gary Oldman goes like on his first shooting spree, I was laughing my ass off. Like he just busts in there, shoots her mom. I was like, oh my god!
I don't know about that.
They just did it. And but Natalie Portman, I think she did a good job. Don't really have too much like negative to say. So, like her coming on to Leon was uncomfortable, but I mean, it's supposed to. I think it's supposed to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Like that to me is the whole thing.
I mean, if you don't read too much about Luc Besson's,
okay,
that's the problem, right? Like, because if you start looking into that,
I'm pretty good about separating the artist and the art, except in situations like this where your art is kind of paralleling your issues,
allegations.
Yeah, and then it's like, ugh.
But she reminds me of a lot of kids that I used to have to deal with back when we had a kids ward in a psych hospital. You would get kids that acted way too adult because they went through some shit, and they would have two modes. They would have, I need to act way more like an adult mode, or I'm gonna blow up at the slightest like drop of a hairpin. And that's where the only way they knew how to alternate, because they lived a life that existed in extremes. I was like, well, that just reminds me of those kids I used to have to work with.
She didn't like blow up a lot in this movie though. Like she didn't have like a lot of like meltdowns. She
or like when she like grabbed a gun and just started shooting out the window.
Yeah,
I've dealt with kids who just took guns and started shooting at people because they thought it would be funny. At least that's what they told people. I've dealt with those kind of volatile, I need to prove something right this second children.
I can't remember Gary Oldman's character name, and I didn't feel
it doesn't matter.
I didn't feel like it mattered enough to look it up.
Because he's just Gary Oldman.
The bad guy.
Yeah.
I also strangely loved him, but only because it was so fucking stupid.
I liked him less as the movie went on.
I could have done with 10... They either needed to, like... God, like you said, like, rein him in, like, 10%. Mm-hmm. They picked a quirk and then they changed it in his next scene.
Yeah, I wish they would have kept up with the music thing, because I liked that, like where he's talking to the guy about, oh, but you're a Mozart guy, like I really like Mozart, but he's too soft for this kind of work. Like,
again, the simplest thing is like I think his character is like you need that ultimate point, like you need to have that full revenge cycle like come back through as far as what this movie's trying to relay. But I also think that like Gary Oldman's character himself is just so over the top that it distracts you from like what the actual movie is trying to show you.
It's supposed to be very like a gritty, real movie. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like fantastical things happen in it, but
and he's a comic book villain.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be like a very real setting.
He's like a D-rank Batman villain or a Punisher villain.
Yeah, Punisher. I could definitely see him as a Punisher villain.
I don't like. He's kind of, to me, he felt more like. So, like, an example is, like, you buy a book, right? Mm-hmm. You buy a book, and then you suddenly realize that, like, it's a used book. The person you had that bought it, like, they used it before you, instead of using a bookmark, they actually folded the pages over. Like, that's kind of what he is in this movie. Like, he's
like... a folded over page?
No, he's just this thing in your sequence of stories that just you're going to encounter along the way, and you're like, oh...
There's a crease.
There's a crease here. Like he just didn't.
I don't give a shit if my pages are creased.
I do.
Well, I would in a comic. I would not care in an actual book.
No, I do. Well, it's a thing that we all have things that weirdly bug us. But he just kind of didn't fit like with the whole scheme of the movie. Like his character was necessary, but the over the top nature with which he did things.
I don't know.
Not.
I think they could have had unnamed random bad guys who killed her family, and still told the story, and it would have been about the same.
It almost would have worked better without his character, because all the other guys were still like DEA agents who were also dealing drugs.
I also didn't like the fact that he was a cop.
Oh, I love that fact.
I didn't. I thought that was pushed.
But I hated the fact that he acted like that as a cop, because dirty cops that act like that get caught.
Yeah, he's so dumb. Like that's just the whole thing. He doesn't even try to hide it.
But the rest of his friends are, a little bit more subdued.
That's one of like, there's several like logic things that you just can't question in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, how come the cops didn't knock on his door, like on Leon's door after all those people were killed. Like, if 4 people are killed in an apartment, the cops are going to knock on the adjacent doors and be like, hey, did you hear anything? Like, did you see anything? Also, I had...
This feels apt to bring this up. That scene wherever they realize that Matilda is the third child.
That was the other one. It's like, why didn't they keep looking for her?
Well, even better, why did if they had shown that picture to that guy that was outside,
he would have known. Yeah.
Movie's over.
Yeah.
Because obviously
Gary Oldman was too hot. He forgot.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I almost forgave it until that guy showed up later in the movie. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, maybe it just, he's a henchman, he's a hired guy, but then he comes back later in the movie. I'm like, okay, no.
Well, here's the other thing: is at the end of the movie, like, Gary Oldman recognizes Leon, which means that they had a picture of Leon. If they had a picture of him, why didn't they circulate that picture among all the people who were invading his apartment? So they all should have been able to recognize him.
Yes.
Like, there's just logical things in this movie that you can't pick at, or the movie unravels. And also just, like, stupid things that don't make sense. Like, why was that server giving alcohol to a 12-year-old girl in a restaurant?
Because she's 18.
Uh-huh.
She kept saying it.
Yeah, except, you got to be 21 to drink.
And they're in New York, so that doesn't work back in 94.
Yeah. This is not
in France. I think you can get away with that.
Yeah,
because I think I was told once in Germany, as long as you're able to reach the top of the bar, you can have a drink. That's from a person who goes to Germany on a fucking.
I have been told
basis.
that serving wine at dinner to children is a common thing, but I don't know about, like, giving them a highball, but but like it's how far does your willing suspension of disbelief go? Like, I'm generally
pretty far because I was entertained.
Oh, I will, like, that's my biggest problem with the movie, is that little thing where he's just like, if he didn't show that dude that picture, like, dude, that girl just walked in there, and then movie's over.
Because Leon kills them all.
Yeah, I mean,
my kind of thing was like, he could save those kids, but he doesn't save those kids. He could have just, like, went in that apartment and shot all those bad guys and saved those 2 children that died. But he didn't.
It'll bring too much heat down. It's too hot.
I don't know. I could buy that he was just generally confused about the situation until he had to make a choice, and her ringing the doorbell was the choice.
I'll kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
The action was great.
Yeah.
I love the first time, not when she uses the rifle, but, like, when she takes the handgun into the apartment and, like, he's like, okay, go ahead and shoot him, and then shoot him, and then he, like, critiques where you got to get them up in the chest, lungs, and heart.
He just kept killing people.
People.
It was bizarre because, like, especially the last, like, scene, like the gunfight scene. I do like how they kind of prep you for that.
Because he's doing sit-ups,
right,
the whole movie.
Yeah, I like they kind of prep you for that. Like, so he didn't just, like, do this out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, that's true, and I noticed that while I was watching it.
Yeah, so that was
That's why it's
nice.
important to train your core.
Yeah, and then, like, the escape, like I like he didn't go out and, like, try to shoot his way out.
No, I hated that.
Oh yeah.
When did he have, 1, where did he get that from, and 2, when did he have time to put it on?
Logic problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, this movie's filled with shit like that.
It is, but I also like that he didn't. It wasn't like every other action.
He didn't have a cop in the apartment. The only he had the cop, and he stopped him at the door. They shot that cop up. Where did he get the gas mask and the uniform from?
Was that not, like, maybe I'm misremembering? Like, he brought him on his side of the door, not their side of the door.
He left him on the outside.
It was on the outside
because all the other cops shot him.
Okay, I'm guessing that was probably an editing mistake.
Yeah, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, that's an editing mistake because I saw it as he brought him to the other side of the door.
No, he shot the.
And then they go, oh my god, he shot him, and then they all shoot the cop.
Yeah, and he falls down dead outside of the door. And then he runs back into the kitchen, and then they shoot the rocket launcher in there, and then the next thing you know, he's wearing a police uniform and a gas mask. I'm like, one, how'd he do that while he's recovering from the shock of an explosion? And two, where did he get that uniform and gas mask from?
I feel like there's a missing scene.
Yeah.
Like where some cops got in there somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe through the window. I feel like there was a missing scene.
That drove me bananas.
It's my Koontz.
Fair enough.
It's also my Koontz.
Yeah.
Fair.
Well, it's that or something else. There's two things.
My brain probably put it. My brain put it together that he brought that guy inside. Maybe that's why.
I think that's like sometimes in action movies, like you get caught up in the action sequence and stop thinking, and like.
Fair.
As soon as you start to try to think again, it's like
wait a minute. It's like you pull a loose thread and it starts to unravel.
I'm probably gonna watch this entire sequence again just to look.
Because I remember thinking that like shooting the fire water thing, what are those called? The spout in the
sprinkler.
The sprinkler. Shooting the sprinkler was smart. Like, oh, that's like something unexpected to like cover your escape, and then that happened. I was like, what?
I liked how he had Matilda escape.
Yeah, that was
his
grab
escape.
the axe. He's like thinking like 3 steps ahead.
Yeah.
And then she realizes, wait, no, you can't fit through here.
Duh.
And he's like, yeah, this is for you.
I like that he. What I liked is it wasn't a blaze of glory situation. Like he wasn't gonna go out and just shoot people until he died. He had legitimately tried to get out.
Yeah.
Like.
He tried to live.
Like, he tried to make it out. So, like, when he makes his promise, it's not a false promise. He intended to make it out of the situation.
Yeah,
it's
to
just
the best of his abilities.
Right. So, like, I don't know. I was able to forgive it for that. I liked
almost
that.
worked.
Yeah, I liked that. You were almost there, buddy.
Except Gary Oldman recognized him.
But at the same time, like, he's sitting there, you're just like, well, I planned if it didn't.
Yeah.
Because he's got his little rings.
The picture they show of him at the Chinese place where he kills Gary Oldman's number one is like overhead. So I thought like, oh, they don't have a picture of his face.
You recognized the widow's peak.
But then like Gary Oldman recognizes him, so I'm like, oh, they must have had another picture. But if they're cops, they would have had a briefing and they would have circulated the picture and they all would have been able to recognize him on sight. But like 3 cops see him and don't recognize him, but Gary Oldman does.
Just because it's Gary Oldman.
Plot convenience.
Those are just some. That one I ignored. The cop one. That one bothered me. But I was like, I honestly felt like there was a missing scene.
And there were scenes that were left out because of the
even
test
from the
audio.
director's cut.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Kiss me, fat boy.
Let's go to Kiss Me Fat Boy. In the original version of the film, they did have sex. And the test audiences said, no. And they're like, okay, I guess we'll change it.
I honestly, that surprises me because the rest of the movie makes it sort of clear like she's trying to grow up and she hasn't had like a good relationship, so she's mistaking
his
like platonic love for sexual love.
I don't know, like the scene where she like basically does a striptease for him is
Yeah,
like,
but he just sits there looking dumbfounded, like, what the fuck is this little kid doing?
That's not how I took it.
That's because that's exactly how he looks every other situation. He's like, what? And then he plays along with her and tries to be John Wayne. He's like, it's a game. He plays a game with a kid.
Yeah,
not getting.
I saw it as she was trying to be provocative. He was just like, no.
I read it as he wanted to jump her bones.
Well, I didn't see that at all.
I didn't either.
And apparently, but that's how it is. Apparently,
I mean, I tried to look for scenes like that specifically so that I didn't seem like a total idiot going in and being like whatever. But none of the scenes I saw, like I just saw a girl who was simulating attraction to an older man, and the man is just being just like, no, you're a kid. Being responsible.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
Yeah.
You're a child. What the fuck's wrong with you?
But that's not what he says. He tells her no because he wouldn't be a good lover. That's not what he says. You're misremembering it.
Maybe I took that as this is his way of getting her to understand.
He's not that smart.
I mean, maybe, but that's how I took it.
Yeah. I mean, you can say it's that way, but he had them fucking the original version.
I mean, if we're gonna go with the definitive, I suppose.
Oh my God, are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Kings of Koontz. My king is him at the movie theaters and just how happy he is, because that's how I imagine I live.
That's also my king. Because that's when I made that note going, wait a minute.
I kind of want my Koontz to be that he did not take her to a movie. And I thought, like, after, like, he recognized the singing in the rain bit, I thought he was going to be like, oh, here's something I like to do for fun. And then he would take her to a movie.
I feel that would have been great. But that just made me view Leon differently than I would have if that scene did not exist. Where I would have probably seen him as completely amoral. Where that made me go, okay, he's like kind of this broken individual who's doing the one thing he's good at, being manipulated his whole life.
He, in his way, is a tragic figure.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still an adult, and he's still got a...
And that helped sell it for me, was the theater scene.
My king is the plant. I think that's just the funniest thing. Like, he just loves this plant so much.
You should be spraying me to make me grow. All right.
The scene like where they actually start like shooting in on him or like that, and he goes out of his way to save the plant, like just kills me. Just like, buddy.
Yeah,
that's
fine. It's his best friend.
I know. It's just funny.
It is my best friend.
It's like me, no roots.
If you really love that plant, you'd plant it in the park and let it grow roots. Shut up, little girl.
Ryan, what is your Koontz?
Just the general ickiness. Like, a lot of the logical stuff really took me out of it, including the gas, the whole thing we discussed with the gas mask. But I think that if they just would have left out, like, all of the sexualization of the little girl and just made it, like, I could have, even though I think it's gross to, like, teach a kid to be an assassin, like, that on its own would have creeped me out less than that and the whole, like, will they, won't they thing, so...
mine was the cop thing with the gas mask.
That really took me out of it.
But my runner-up to that was I wanted Matilda to do a ring trick.
Because you wanted her to blow herself up?
No, just, like, do something with a grenade, because he taught her that, and I really thought she should have been the one to kill Gary Oldman.
I do know that there was a different plan for that. I just don't know what they did with it.
Because she blew herself up.
She blew herself up? Was that what I knew there was something they wanted to do differently with it.
I posted it.
Did you post it? I watched a thing on it.
The original ending of Leon was conceived to be far darker than what transpires in the released version. Rather than planting Leon's favorite shrub outside the orphanage to honor his memory and start a new life, Mathilda goes murderously insane when Stansfield shoots Leon dead. The original ending called for Mathilda to open her jacket and reveal a series of live grenades planted on her person. She would then perform the ring trick Leon taught her earlier and detonate the building. Ultimately, this was deemed too dark and inconsistent with Mathilda's nature that Besson changed the ending.
Besson generally has a lot of, I would call them ring tricks in his films. Because, like, not really suicide, but in terms of, like, he always has something that just randomly is inserted into the film early on that comes back up later near the end of the movie.
When did he teach her that? Because I don't remember it.
They went to kill somebody, and the person's apparently aware they're assassins, so he starts shooting the door, and he looks at Matilda and goes, it's time for the ring trick.
Oh.
And then he throws the grenade in and then shows her the pin and goes, that's the ring trick.
So, I should have turned on the subtitles because there were parts where I had trouble understanding Jean Reno.
Because he has a thick accent.
I didn't know what he was saying.
I turned on subtitles to watch this.
I should have. Yeah. I didn't. So I didn't understand what he was saying during that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes sense.
So to me, that would have like come full circle. I wouldn't want her to die doing it, but I'm having a hard time constructing this scene.
It's a revenge movie where there's no revenge payoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he taught her something super specific for an emergency situation. Now, he does it himself.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, like, his original intent was for that to come for a full circle and be the payoff. But again, his original intent was for them to scrunk. So...
Sometimes editors' notes are good.
Yeah.
Thank you, editor. You made Léon likable.
Sometimes the test audience is like, no. We don't think so. Go ahead.
My Koontz is, I mean, we talked about it. It's the there's just a lot of editing errors with this movie that I caught this time. So, like, it's harder to ignore this time.
Yeah, it's, there's a lot of little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, ranking. We're going to have Daniel go first because I've been waiting 15 years to finally hear his. Where do you put this movie?
Surprisingly, I think it's my new number 7 above it, 1990, but I think I like Call Girl of Cthulhu better.
I definitely like Call Girl of Cthulhu better.
It's another one of those movies that I can see myself watching again. It's not my favorite movie of all time, but I had a good time.
And again, our rankings are linked in our show notes.
I think... Oh, God. This is hard.
It's similar to The Mist to me in that I think it's mostly a very good movie, but I don't really enjoy watching it.
Honestly, I have generally the opposite feeling, because I noticed a lot of problems with it, but I still actually enjoyed it. I'll tell you one thing, though. I think Renfield was more fun.
Oh, yeah.
So
Renfield is 100 times more fun.
Let's put it at number 2.
Fun is not how I would describe Leon the Professional.
Oh, I had so much fun.
I think it's still enjoyable.
I want to get like a little pig puppet. Her parents just died.
It is my new number 48. Homework. What profession would you give Leon in your remake? He can't be a contract killer. He can be anything else, but the movie will generally be the same, except he has a different profession.
I have 2 answers.
Okay.
I have 1, but you go ahead.
I also have 1.
Okay. So the first one, this would require Leon to be smarter than what he actually is. No, that's wrong. Not smarter, just less focused on his career. Yeah. So
less of a savant.
One I came up with was he would actually be a public defender, and the situation would be that
he's going after the corrupt cops.
Yeah, corrupt cops would basically like go in there, and Matilda is his client kind of deal, where he has to basically put it all together.
He's Matt Murdock.
Basically.
Yeah.
The second is he's a taxi driver, and Matilda just gets in his taxi one day with the money that she found under the floorboards and says, "Drive me away from like all of this," and the cops are chasing him the entire time.
I could see both of those.
Ryan.
He's a cleaner.
He's an actual
cleaner. He's a janitor.
Mine is...
He's like the janitor of the building, and he like sneaks her out in her garbage can. I don't know.
It's like Die Hard with mops.
Okay, he's a Twitter artist who sadly has to take commissions of drawing furry art that he hates because it's the only way he can pay his bills.
Does he make her model?
Yes. He's like,
now you will be the rabbit from the Zoo movie.
Yeah. I need you to hop.
But you're the porno version, Judy Humps.
And he hates his life because the only people that'll pay him to draw are fucking perverted furries on Twitter.
Yeah, they just love his Judy Humps characters. It makes them go Nick wild.
And his primary subscriber is Luc Besson.
Luc Besson subscribes to the highest tier of his Patreon.
It's just like fucking that scene from Aqua Teen Hunger Force where he's just like, it's got to be completely bananas to get me off.
He uses his Twitter clout to build a support group for Matilda, and they send her money.
And that is how Luc Besson became a director.
Yeah, this is his origin story.
Yeah, we solved it.
He's a creepy looking man if you look at his picture.
What?
Yeah.
I would have never guessed.
Oh, okay. You're kidding.
Yeah.
Of course, Daniel looked this guy up. I mean, I can't say much. I did too. I was just like, what's this guy actually look like? I'm like, that's weirdly kind of on point with what I thought he would look like.
Yeah, he looks like a sex offender. He looks like my patient.
He looks like he's trying to grab his wrists.
He looks like he can never
That's
wash...
a very gross sound, too.
He looks like he can never wash his hands enough.
Question for the listeners. What do you think of Leon? Do you think it's a wonderful movie? Do you think it's gross and icky? Or do you just somewhere in the middle?
As long as you don't think it's the best love story out there, you can stay subscribed.
The best one-sided love story? No, it's not love because she's a girl and she doesn't know what love is. It's an infatuation. It's a crush.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the original version, he crushes her.
I really want this rap battle to happen now.
When I was in Harvard, I smoked weed every day.
Matilda versus Mathilda.
I wish I could write raps.
And then the sequel will be a three-way between Leon the Professional, Leon Trotsky, and Leon from the zombie...
Resident Evil. Yeah, that's great too. Wow.
In my head, like, I think of, like, characters that have the same names.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Monica from DDLC has a rap battle against Monica from...
Lewinsky.
Dogaropa?
Dogaropa? What's that?
It's a death game about, like, a bunch of kids trapped in a high school, and there's this bear that gets them to kill each other.
I would have made it a three-way between Monica from Doki Doki, Monica Lewinsky, and Monica from Friends.
You know what? There's a lot of
Friends
strange
dies first.
There's a lot of strange parallels there.
And then my favorite is Milhouse Van Houten from The Simpsons versus Richard Milhouse Nixon versus the head of Nixon, assisted by Headless Body of Agnew. How does he make the noise? He doesn't have a head. Get him, Agnew!
Run him down, Agnew.
You guys watch the trailer for that? I have not.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I want it all to be new. I want it to be completely new.
I am scared to death.
I'm not, because even if I don't like it, it doesn't change the originals.
Answer me one question. Did we determine whether or not it is a continuation, or is it, like, just kind of smattered around, or do we know?
We don't know.
The trailer tells you.
Oh, okay, I don't want to know. I just want to watch.
Okay.
What I'm imagining is, if I were doing it, I would make it a different continuity, because at the end of the last episode, they rebooted and they went around again. So I would just pick up somewhere like after Fry is fresh from coming to the year 3000 and just take it in a totally different direction. That's what I would do.
Yeah. I was a little bit disenfranchised because, like, that ending is just so good.
But that ending still exists.
I know, and I'm trying real hard to, like, think of a way where that continues. And
I don't think it can, because, like, it would just be like more of the same.
Yeah, and I'm also one of the... I'm in the department where I didn't like a lot of the later seasons.
I did. I like it. I love every single episode.
Oh, I just didn't.
It's my second favorite show of all time. I watch it again and again and again.
I watched those first seasons, like, pretty repeatedly. It's just those later ones, for some reason, I didn't vibe with them.
I think some of the Comedy Central episodes are a little weaker than the Fox episodes, but there are also, like, some episodes from the Comedy Central era that are also just better than a lot. Like, it varies. Like, one of my all-time favorite moments of any Futurama thing is from the first season they were on Comedy Central, where Zoidberg and Clamps have their Western-style showdown.
Scuttle on home. This ain't none of your business, Slick.
My name isn't Slick. It's Zoidberg. John Zoidberg!
And I just laugh and laugh and laugh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I could go on and on about Futurama for forever.
That's all right.
It brings you more joy than Leon the Professional, and I'm glad.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I could also regurgitate, like, the entirety of, like, the first two seasons, like, off my head. So.
Yeah, no, I can. Beck won't watch Space Pilot with me, Space Pilot 3000 with me, because I just talk about it.
Just talk it through.
I'll come over and I'll watch it with you.
Yeah, and we recently watched it with Emma, and she's like, Simpsons is better. And I'm like, well,
you know what? You are my daughter.
I mean, yeah. I did make you grow up with Simpsons, so
if I ever needed more proof, there it was.
Yeah. For further reading,
Nikita.
You should probably check out Nikita and Columbiana because they're the spiritual predecessor and spiritual sequel to this film.
Lone Cub and Wolf.
I have not seen either, so I don't know. Although I do want us to do a top 5 femme fatales at some point.
God, all of mine are probably coming from James Bond.
0 of mine will come from.
I would require time to think. I've had to make 3 lists today.
Make another list. Oh, that reminds me. Surprise top 5.
Oh.
Yeah, I love top 5. What is it?
Top 5 pedophiles.
Luc Besson.
Leon, why is all 5 Luc Besson?
Leon the Professional, and Humbert, and Claire Quilty, and Kevin Spacey.
Is Kevin Spacey a pedophile?
I don't know. I know he
has some kind of sexual offense of some sort.
He did something. I don't know what it is.
Oh yeah. He got accused by. Oh fuck.
Nobuhiro Watsuki's in there somewhere.
Yeah, he's actually number 1.
Is that the Ryuni Kenshin guy?
Yes.
That was my number 1.
He's my number 1. Yeah, he's my number 1 by a mile. I cannot wait for the reboot. That's like
actual money, probably trying to get that.
I love the new series. I
need to look up who they were, but another 5 manga artists just got arrested for having child porn.
Oh, that doesn't shock me.
The new Rurouni Kenshin manga series that's being published is so good, but it's just it's so fan servicey. When they bring back the Jupangatna, and when Anji the Destroyer comes back, and he's fighting with Kenshin and dope. Saito, and it's all of them. They all come back.
I still need to finish Rurouni Kenshin.
Yeah, it's so
good. The
Sojiro, Cho the Sword Hunter.
Finish the manga, not the anime. If you have not watched the anime,
I've watched the first 3 seasons of the anime.
There's only 3 seasons.
There's only 3.
Oh, yeah. Then I've watched the first 2.
Okay, so
I don't know.
That's
how the seasons are broken up.
So up to season 2 ends with Shishio.
Yes, that's where I've gotten.
Okay, that's fine. The rest of the stuff after that is kind of it's fine, but it's not.
I like the German one.
The Son of God arc or whatever that was.
No, the one with the German knights.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. The Feng Shui one was where I was like, oh my god, that's so weird. It's too much.
I just like the title Botusai the Manslayer. Cool.
Basically, because the 3rd season is basically all filler.
Yeah.
Whereas the manga series has an entire other arc of did you ever watch the Samurai X stuff?
Yeah.
Did you watch Reflection?
No.
Okay. Well, there's a character in Reflection that's very important in that last arc in the Kenshin manga.
I'll just read the manga.
It's better, yes.
Yeah.
By a lot.
I'll sell the high seas and see if I can find
I will.
I have all of it.
I also have all of it. One of us will get you to read it. Because it is worth reading.
It's really good.
When we do the Samurais of Babylon.
Shogun and Golden Kamuy and Rurouni Kenshin.
Yeah. And the alternate timeline where Ryan's happy.
Yeah. I was watching Leon the Professional and just being miserable, and Beck's like, do you ever cover anything on the show you like? I'm like, no. No, I didn't. Okay, upcoming on the Horror of Babylon, this Sunday, the 23rd, we're doing Toby Hooper's Salem's Lot, and the following Sunday we're doing A Return to Salem's Lot, which is terrible, but tons of fun. Yeah. And then our next 2 bonus episodes are episode 1 and 2 of the Alien-a-thon. And these are Thursday, July the 27th. We are reviewing Sigourney Weaver's hit film, Alien. And then we are also reviewing, on August 3rd, Sigourney Weaver's other hit film, The Cabin in the Woods. I mean, Aliens.
Cabin in the Woods. I want to watch that again.
That's a good movie. And thank you to our patrons, Sigourney Weaver, who pays us in meatloafs.
I was going to say she's in terms of her payment, it's probably just James Cameron Earth points.
What James Cameron movie is she in?
She's in the Avatar.
Oh, I should really watch that.
I'd tell you to watch the first one, and you're probably fine.
I didn't see it because it was in theaters the same time Sherlock Holmes was, and I saw Sherlock Holmes multiple times and skipped Avatar.
Jackie has like a yearly thing where she'll watch that on repeat for like a week.
These blue people, I love them.
I mean, I don't know, it warms her spiritually, I guess. I don't know.
You like what you like. I've never seen it, so I don't know. I wanted to see Jude Law twice.
I would call it a perfectly acceptable sci-fi film. It also teaches you not to bet against James Cameron, because that sequel came out like 50 years later and it still made buku's money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for like taking your time on a project, and I'd rather wait and have it be better. But sometimes it waits so long that I don't care anymore, i.e. Kingdom Hearts 3. Yeah, it's just like, I don't care.
No one cared anymore.
And then it came out and was allegedly a wet fart. At least that's the impression I got from the Kingdom Hearts community.
I put it in, and 30 minutes into it, I hadn't gotten to play. It was all cutscenes, and I just turned it off and said,
it's a modern Square Enix game.
I don't care.
One of the big gripes I heard from somebody was like, basically they even got through all the cutscenes. They got to the end of the game, and they're like, and then it goes on, like there's more. They're like, most people assumed this was going to be the final one, and it wasn't.
Oh, there's too much money in that franchise.
I'm sure, yeah. but that's the as long as it took to make 3.
If somebody could give me a save file where I just get to go to Frozen World and play Frozen and be Sora and Donald and Goofy, run around with Elsa, like, I want to do it. I just don't want to get through all the crap to get there. Yeah, patrons are cool. Thanks for watching Leon the Professional and recording with me tonight, guys.
I had a fantastic
time. I also had a fantastic
I had a fun time recording with you guys. I think this episode went much better than the other episode we recorded tonight, which is going to heavily involve editing, but that's okay. That's okay.
And we like the stories too.
Just not a lot to say. I'm glad we combined them into one episode instead of doing an episode each on them. That would have been bad. All right. Thanks, patrons. Thanks everybody for listening. Stay tuned for our socials and stay scary.
Stay scary. We love you.
Stay scary, folks.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that the Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.